Hello and welcome. It's time for another Magnus Protocol review. Today we have episode 28, Interruptions. Alright, we've got a lot to talk about with this one, but first, our classification is CAT 2RB 2578 1708 1998 130 52024. Transmutation, human, ceremony, academic. I don't have to do those anymore. You can see them on the screen now. Anyway, okay. Let's start with the beginning here because there's a lot. Trevor Herbert is here. That's his voice. There's even a moment later on where we see that he's absolutely still, like, he's Trevor. Even if this is a different Trevor, which I'm positive it is, Trevor's still Trevor, which makes me go back to Gertrude and Jerry and go, they still have that in there, right? Even these multiverse versions of them, like, Trevor may not personally be hunting down the problem, but he's very insistent and he's already done the legwork and, but he plays it off at first like he's not. He plays it very casual. He's, tired and there's, stuff he doesn't understand going on. And why would he bother about all that? But, he should get him photographed. There's a lot of good diversity in here. It's like, all right. Okay, come on. However, when he gets into the office with Lena and Gwen, everything changes. He talks a little bit about the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, and how they are asking about overlapping responsibilities and synergistic fulfillment objectives, which is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But then he talks about how Daniel Turner, the commissioner, has tipped him off to the killings that Inksole has done. And we have Gwen and Lena both trying to pretend like they don't know anything about it. Mostly Lena. But Trevor just, not desperate, that's not the right word, almost excited to have this external fired, and says that they just need to find a way to handle it, basically, which is, yep, that's, my boy's in there. Then we get, oh man, there's so much in this episode that we haven't got into yet with alchemy. We get into everybody else joking about how much easier everything was, and a really nice moment where Alice jokes about where Celia has come from, and then Celia shuts down again and locks down, as Sam puts it, and then Sam tries to talk to her about it after Alice leaves and tells her, hey, I'm not going to pry. It makes it difficult when you just lock down like that, but if you decide ultimately you don't want to tell me, I'm not going to pry. It's like, man, Sam's a really great guy who might be dead at the end of this episode. We'll get there. So from there, we get it blew me away when it happened, but now it's not the big scene of the episode, right? We get Gwendolyn Bouchard, chasing after Trevor Herbert to give him a flash drive that has all of the malfeasance and mistakes that she has gathered from Lena's administration. She's gunning for that job. She wants that job. I don't think it's the job she wants, but I think she'll probably wind up with it by the end of it. This was a really good scene in a lot of ways, seeing that shift of Trevor being like, you're Jeremy's granddaughter, to, you know what, don't bother calling the office. I'm never there. Here's my personal number. And just report any more malfeasance, you see. And it's just, ooh, Gwen, this is not going to work out the way you think it will. Stabbing Lena in the back is not going to fix things for you. Then we get Sam, my boy, goes out that door to try and figure out what kind of car, and it is a Bentley, Alice was right, that Trevor Herbert is driving, and he gets got. The archivist, as the transcript says, was there. And I've got the archivist. I've got the archivist here. He's gonna I've got the transcript here so that I can make sure I get all these details right. But I guess when I say the archivist, that's not quite right. Right? It is archivist. And just the archivist comes up in the transcript, the archivist emerges, but otherwise it is archivist. And this is not just one person, it seems like, or maybe it is a collection of people, as we've said a couple times, but it seems to be feeding on statements. And it drains one out of Sam, it compels him, and he tells his story of the Magnus Institute. We are 2 episodes to the end of this season. And we know why Sam cares. And Sam might just be dead. I hope not. I really do hope not, but Sam might just be dead. And this is where we get into the alchemy stuff. There's a couple things with alchemy that I haven't brought up yet in these reviews because we're doing that alchemy video that'll be after the show goes on break again. And so I was like, hey, I'll wait to talk about it till then. But we can't really wait anymore. So this story is, this statement is from Sam about his time at the Magnus Institute, about how he went with another boy named Saul and a girl named Joy, and they played with Pogs, and he wouldn't let Joy play. And Miss Lang, that took them to the Institute to be tested. There they meet Gilbert, who is very thin. I could not find a alchemist in history named Gilbert, but there is Gilderay, who is, or was, one of the companions of Joan of Arc, and also wound up being a serial killer of children. Just, maybe no connection. Maybe I'm overreaching. There's been some accusations in the last few episodes, rightfully so, that I could be overreaching and trying to find connections where there are none. Kind of in the same way about Dr. F. Welling. I found a possible connection, but I don't think it's necessarily a good one. Georg von Welling was an alchemist, German alchemist, in the late 1655 to 1727. And he penned some, what has been described, not by me, as absolute nonsense by some other people. But again, that's not my opinion on it. I haven't read the man's works. But supposedly it was kind of gibberish at times. But I also feel like that one might be reaching, mostly just because the only connection there is the last name. Granted, we've had a lot of characters that have popped up with last names that were the same, right? And so, same as Famous Alchemists, our main cast is full of them. And so it could just be that's the connection. So I didn't want to dig too deep into that one, but I did kind of get interested. So I dug a little bit deeper than I necessarily needed to. But we also have 2 stern-looking older women here, and we don't get names for them. I feel like that's an important detail we need to note down because Sam felt like they could see through him, basically. And they're the reason, and because of the pressure, that he cries and runs off and runs into Dr. Welling's office. And in Dr. Welling's office, there is an alchemical ritual going on. There is the color of the light is wrong. There is a color of the light is wrong. Wonderful, Trey. That's a perfect sentence. The color of the light in the room is wrong. It is a yellow, which could be sulfur, could be citronine, could be xanthus. We'll get into all that because the light is very important. And in the course of this ritual, there are machines and bottles and stones and rocks and metals floating in the air. This ritual seems like it was almost complete before Sam interrupts it by saying hello and throwing off the chanting from Dr. Welling. The naked person on the table, surrounded by all this. It seems like the goal might have been to put this light into the bones of the man on the table I say man on the table. I don't actually know. I didn't take the note to see if it said. No, just a person. Okay. So, we can't, I don't want to get that wrong. It could be important later. So the person on the table, it seems like it could have been an attempt to infuse their bones with this yellow light, which we'll get into again in a minute as to why that's important. But when Sam says hello, it disrupts everything. And Dr. Welling has the light sucked into him, into his bones, and then he screams without a sound as the bones rip their way free of the skin. And specifically, the line is that the arm reaches in and rips out and then frees itself. And he can see the grinning skull as the eyes are shocked. And so, obviously, this is, the skeleton has been freed from its flesh, and it now lives separately. We've had a brain. We've had things put into people. We've had multiverse. We've had future. Now we have skeletons. And I love a good skeleton. But we also get the reveal that Sam was nervous, is maybe the word, around his parents afterwards, because he felt like he could see the outline of their skulls grinning at him under their faces. And then the archivist takes another breath, stealing the memory. I want to read this one verbatim off of the transcript. The archivist steps forward, takes one last breath of Sam's memory, then recedes, leaving the tape recorder to flounder in the rain and stop. It's one last breath of the memory. The archivist is feeding on them. And whether Sam's okay or not, we don't know. I hope so. But maybe not. So I could sit here all day and just we will wobble back and forth on whether or not Sam's okay. My gut feeling is that he is okay. At the same time, season 1 finale is not too early to kill a character, as we know. So he might not be okay. But before we get into the yellow light and everything there and what was going on alchemically, there is some really interesting interplay with our characters going on. Gwen trying to usurp Lena, Inksoul on the run, and them having to find out something they can do about Inksoul. Will they send a different external against Inksoul? Will they just try and kill Inksoul? There's a lot more to see going on there. And then, of course, we have Celia's secrets and Alice's fears. But let's get into what happens with the yellow light. And if you don't care about the alchemy side of things at all, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. If you do, I'm going to try and keep this brief here because it gets deep. So, the yellow light could be sulfur, right? We had the silver light before. This could be sulfur or a sulfuric light of some kind. This could be yellow light to represent the sun. But the fact that Sam specifically says that it's infused in the bones, that it's coming out of the joints, basically. It's holding the bones together and animating them. This light is important. Like I said, this could be the soul, color of the soul. This could be the sulfur as in the combustibility. It could be the heat, the sun, life, right? It could also be Citrinitas, which is the third step of the great work. So the magnum opus, the great work in alchemy, requires a process. Okay, this process is gone on to be ontology and a lot of philosophical and psychiatric care involves some of this, but the actual the alchemy side of it is the Gnostic, right? It's the ontological. And so It is a 4-step process where you have a blackening, or melanosis, you have a whitening, or leucosis, you have a yellowing, or xanthosis, and then you have a reddening, or iosis. And these are nigredo, albedo, citrinitas, and rubedo. Here's the thing. This is the process by which the great work is completed, right? I don't think it's going to be that simple for them here. And the actual process of how you get any one of these 4 things differs greatly depending on what school of alchemy you're a part of, and also depending on who you're listening to. When I tell you that there is a list of famous alchemists that is hundreds of names long, I mean it. And each and every one of them, for the most part, had a different way of doing things. We don't know which one Protocol is following when it comes to the way the Institute worked. We do know it was a gathering of alchemists, and there was a wonderful comment on the last episode. I will try to find it very quickly, and I will cut myself back in afterwards. There was a wonderful comment from Teresa on the last episode that said, what if the solo progress was them becoming avatars, basically? And coming together, they're not able to achieve that because they're not focused on the one that they would be more connected to, which is very possible. But they are working together somehow, right? And if the process is we first have to take the body through nigredo to be able to, remove the rot and the filth, and then we purify them with albedo, and then from there we insert the xanthus, the citrinitas, and it yellows them. That brings us finally to the reddening, which is rubedo, which allows us to make the Philosopher's Stone, right? If that's the case, there's a bunch of different ways to do that, as I said, and a couple of them I wanted to mention because they're very interesting. So there is, of course, the 7. There's the 7, which ties into the 7 planets with astrology. There was a wonderful comment from an astrologer on the last episode, Jax. If you want to go back and check that out, you'll get some more context there. But there's also a 12-step and a 14-step. And as soon as I found there was a 14-step, that I immediately was like, Smirks 14. There we go. That's got to be it. I don't think it lines up quite perfectly to that, but I do want to list these off here. The 12-step version of it, which was in the Tabula Smaragdina, is calcination, solution or dissolution, separation, conjunction, putrefaction, congelation, sebation, sublimation, fermentation, exaltation, multiplication, and projection. And I'll get into those in the alchemy video as well, because I do think that's important to the great work, and we have the fears to be able to cross-reference some of this with. But when we look at the 14, they're different. They're purgation, sublimation, calcination, exuberation, fixation, solution, separation, conjunction, putrefaction in sulfur, solution of bodily sulfur, solution of sulfur of white light, fermentation in elixir, multiplication in virtue, multiplication in quantity. And if you're hearing all that and you're like, I don't understand any of that, that is the process that theoretically an alchemist would take a mineral through to be able to make it into the Philosopher's Stone, which is, of course, the great work, the magnum opus of alchemy, to create the Philosopher's Stone that would allow you to transmute anything and to become functionally immortal. It seems to me like the Institute very clearly here was attempting to do an alchemical ritual. Really bad day for it, by the way, when you got children in the place, but they were attempting to do an alchemical ritual to be able to do something to this naked person on the table. And my assumption is that it's either sublimation or that it's solution of bodily sulfur, that it is the introduction of sulfur to this body to try and free it from the flesh, or specifically citrinitas. I could be way off. You could be sitting there and going, Trey, I don't think that's it at all. How dare you dig this deep? You dug too deep here. You've called up the Balrog from Moria. It's time to stop. But I really think this process, this 4 steps, are going to be important to the entire thing, specifically because we had the white or silver light with Newton, which would have been albedo, and we have the yellow light here, Citrinitas, with Sam and Dr. Welling. And again, I could be on completely the wrong track, but I feel like we're getting close to something. Also, this one is going to be such a pain to do the captions on, because I'm going to have to write Citrinitas every time I said it. Anyway, the only other theory that I have here is that this is yet more of the separating body parts of, if we maybe specifically, maybe they were trying to find the soul. What part of the body does the soul reside in? And that's why we have, a skeleton that's separating from its flesh, or we have a brain that's separating from the other half of the brain, or we have Newton trying to bring things to life. It could be, that's a much lesser theory for me, but it could be. And one thing I wanted to mention too, because I know we have a couple people in the comments, and by all means, continue. I'm not telling you you're wrong at all. In fact, I want to give you a little bit of ammo here for your theory on desire and being focused on that, and that's where we're going instead of fears. The 5th step in the 14 steps is fixation. So, just throwing that out there. But no, I'm really stoked about Protocol. We are definitely getting closer to the answer, right? But we're also about to be done with season 1. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're still looking forward for the alchemy video, I hope I haven't got your hopes up too much, because yes, I will get into each of those steps, and I will do my best to mention what they could be. But also a lot of it is just historical, because alchemy is so big. There's so much. Every single alchemist had a different way to do things, and a lot of their secrets we still don't know. A lot of their codes we still don't understand. Some of them were written in supposedly celestial, the language of the angels. Some of them were supposedly written in demonic. There's a lot of stuff we still to this day don't understand about alchemy. And so I hope you don't get your hopes up too much, but I do have a few pages in a document, that hopefully will sate your hunger on how it could be being used in Protocol. Anyway, like I said, I'm no expert. I'm not a scholar of this. I am reading into all this on my own time, and so I will only be focusing on how it pertains, or how it could pertain to Protocol. But if it's a subject you're interested in, just remember that it's tied to some pretty dark stuff. So, I'm not telling you don't look into it. Obviously, you're your own person. You make your own choices. But I would say look into it with care, because some of the stuff, we got chemistry out of it. We've got astronomy and astrology, and, and then some of the stuff, like I mentioned, Guy de Rais wound up being a serial killer of children because he would use their bodies in alchemy. So, just throwing that out there. Just something, give you a little trigger warning if you go to digging too much into this. There will definitely be things that I keep out of that video. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think Sam is alive, or do you think Sam is dead? Do you think this Trevor is going to hunt things in the night on his own, or do you think he's going to use the entire might of the ministry to do so? Let me know your thoughts. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Magnus Protocol. Nice to offer.